Hi everyone! In this video, we will solve higher order equations with factoring by grouping. Solve x to the third minus 12x squared minus 4x plus 48 equals 0. When we have more than three, or a trinomial, more than three terms, in this case we have four, the only way we can solve or factor these is by grouping. And we group the first two and the second two. In the first two, we look for the greatest common factor, and the largest thing we have here is just x squared. So we will factor it out of both terms. That means that I divide the first one by x squared and the second one by x squared. Another way of seeing it is that we're pulling it out of both of those. So the first one, I am left with x, and the second term, 12x squared divided by x squared, they both cancel out, so we just have x minus 12. In the second two, I'm looking again for the largest, greatest common factor. Between those two terms, it looks like it's just 4. And because this first one is negative, we're going to take a negative out of both of those. So we will have a minus 4 on the outside. Again, this is like dividing by negative 4 on both of these. And the first one, we get a negative 4 divided by negative 4. This is a positive one, which just leaves us x. 48 divided by negative 4 is a negative, and 48 divided by 4 is 12. And this is still equal to 0. Now that we've factored out the greatest common factor, we have two much larger terms. And to continue factoring by grouping, we look at these two larger terms and find the greatest common factor. And in this case, it's the binomial x minus 12 for both of them. So if we factor that out, x minus 12. That's like dividing the first one by x minus 12 and the second one by x minus 12. And you'll see that it factors out, or it cancels out, the binomial in both of those terms, which leaves us with x squared minus 4. So we have x squared minus 4 equals 0. Now that we have this factored and it equals 0, we can use the zero product property, meaning that if I have two things being multiplied together, which I do right here, and it equals 0, the property of 0 is that one or both of them would be 0. So we're going to make both of them equal 0. X squared minus 4 equals 0, and solve for the variable. On the left side, we need to add 12 to both sides, and we're left with x equals 0 plus 12 is positive 12, and that's one of our answers. On the right side, we will add 4 to isolate our variable. Negative 4 plus 4 is 0, so we get x squared equals positive 4, and now we have a square equals a number. To undo or negate that square, we're going to square root both sides, because what I do to one side I need to do to the other, and this negates or cancels out the squared, so I'm just left with x. And on the right-hand side, when I have the square root of a number, I actually have two solutions, a positive and a negative. The square root of 4 is 2, and so we get a positive 2 and a negative 2. Listing them from the least to the greatest, we have negative 2, comma, positive 2. So if we were to list all of the answers here from low to high, we would go from negative 2 to positive 2 to positive 12, and these are all of the answers for our variable x. And now we're all done.